everybody. Welcome to another episode of Horror Movie Night. I'm Matt. Oh, no, wait. It's Scott.
Oh.
And I am going to be the host this week, I guess, because Matt and Brian are here. I'm not alone talking into the ether. But Matt is insisting that since I last year was like, hey, guys, let's do a best of 2018 horror episode for the main feed, that I have to take the reins this year, and that's where we're at. So I am going to be the moderator. We are going to mostly talk about our favorite horror movies that came out this year. It has to have a 2019 release date. And I don't know how you guys, I don't know if it's going to be top 10. I didn't count. Do we want to talk about the ones that were overhyped and we didn't like first to kind of get the negativity out and then be all positive, or you want to sprinkle it through?
We can sprinkle it through.
Let's sprinkle it through. I'll say that for me, I'm going to skip most of the movies that I saw at Fantastic Fest.
Yeah, those, you don't get to have those because I am still mad.
Yeah, I'll mention like one or two there's one of them that made my top 20 of the year. I'll mention that. But like beyond that, the rest of them, I don't even know when they're going to be made available and all different types of things like that. So.
Oh, and one question. Are we aiming real hard for spoiler free?
Let's try our best.
Yeah, let's definitely be spoiler free, because I know a lot of movies that Matt loved, I still haven't seen.
Yeah.
So,
and you probably won't see in 2020 either.
No, probably not. But there's still hope.
There is hope.
You never know. All right, Scott. So how about you start us off?
Oh shit. Okay. Well, I don't want to throw it all out the window. At first, so I want to talk about a great double feature that I would love to do, and I may subject Megan to it sometime this winter. Satanic Panic and Ready or Not. I feel like that would be an awesome, like, not tight, 3 hours, because I don't even think both of those together are, I don't think that each one is maybe like an hour and 20 minutes a piece, but they both are really well paced. They're really fun. They both have a very similar feeling to me. I actually liked Ready or Not better than Satanic Panic by a little bit.
I was going to say Ready or Not broke my top 20 of the entire year. I absolutely loved Ready or Not so much. I thought it was so much fun. It was gory. It has what I think is one of the most iconic female survivor girls in a really, really long time.
And what did you tell me when we were talking about it after I watched it?
Oh, I desperately want that to be the next big cosplay. I think that character, the final shot of that movie looks so badass.
I haven't seen it.
Well,
I'm just saying,
we're still doing spoiler free, buddy. Don't worry.
We're still doing spoiler free, but the way she looks at the end of that movie is like, I want to see like 20 of those at the next convention I go to.
Man, if no one, good. You know what? I'm going to try and enlist at least one of our female cosplay friends that will be at Monster Mania in Cherry Hill in March and say, I will help you put this together if you want, because I just want someone to do it because it's so fucking cool. Anyway,
yeah,
so I love
girl,
them
that would
both.
be my cosplay. For sure.
I mean, don't let your dreams be dreams, bro.
True.
You'll have to shave your chest, though.
Nah, never. Deals off.
As a man who has shaved his chest more than one time in his life, even like bicked it, it's not fun.
No.
It's not fun to do, and it's even worse to have it grow back out. Like, I just had my chest piece finished, and the tattooing doesn't itch nearly as bad, or like the healing of the tattoo doesn't itch nearly as bad as the hair growing out.
Yeah, I shaved a mustache into my chest, and that was an itchy grow back.
Wait, did you shave the mustache out of your chest, or you shaved your entire chest and left the mustache?
I shaved my entire chest and left the mustache.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Brian, if I didn't love you, I would hate you.
I know. On paper, I suck. I know.
But you're so
in person too.
Oh man, no, Megan likes you, so
that's something. It's got to count for something.
Yeah, it's got to count for something.
How long did Megan meet him?
For like an hour and a half. I don't know.
I mean, just saying.
Hey, Megan, if you're listening, I like sauce on my spaghetti.
You liar! You're a liar, and you know it.
Man, don't. I'm gonna tell her not to listen to this episode because you don't want to go back to being on her shit list, all right?
Me?
Now, Megan's
Both
No,
of you
me.
motherfuckers.
Megan's great. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
People
Megan,
loved.
oh yeah, I was
loved
about
her
to say.
appearance.
Yeah, and I was like, babe, you have such a sexy voice. You have to have a podcast.
I know a
Preferably-
producer.
Yeah, I was about to say, preferably just be on our show to bring some sexiness to our pudgy asses.
Hey man, that wisdom teeth liquid diet made me lose like 15 pounds. I'm finally looking sexy and skinny.
Oh man, getting ready for the new year.
Mhm.
Anorexia, here we come.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, go ahead.
So let's see.
Do you want to talk about your Fantastic Fest stuff and get it out of the
No,
way?
I mean, I already deleted them off my list. The only one that the big one that cracked my top 20, and I've mentioned it already once before on this show. I've mentioned it a couple times on this show. After Midnight is
I
just
cannot wait to see it.
yeah, like I know that Scott and I have had like mixed opinions on how he felt about The Battery, but it is such a step up in every way, shape, and form from that film, which whether you love or hate The Battery is an impressive movie on what you can do with a very small budget.
Right.
And After Midnight really takes all of the things that they learned on how to shoot something without showing anything and just pushes it to like the next level of like, okay, no more zombies. Let's bring in a fucking monster. And it just is so good. It's so funny. Invented the grossest shot that I've ever seen. I guess I can talk because people have been talking about that a little bit. So, you know, we did our Crybaby episode recently. We were talking about guzzling tears and how gross that is. There's a sequence in After Midnight where they're sitting at a bar and the dude's completely out of money. And he goes, "Come on, give me the free shot. I'll take the free shot." And she goes, "You really want the gorilla fart?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, give me the gorilla fart. I'm desperate." And the gorilla fart is that they take the rubber like thing that they put shots on and pour all of the spillover into a shot glass, and he has a shot of that instead.
No, that's awful. As a one-time bartender, that is the most horrid thing I can imagine.
Yeah, so I mean but that was the thing that everyone was talking about with that. But when the Q&A happened, they're like, "So did you really?" like,
Of course he didn't.
yeah. Well, no, he did. It was one of the hosts of Last Podcast on the Left that did it. So,
Oh, well, yeah, that would explain it.
yeah,
Was it Henry Zabrowski? I feel like it was Henry Zabrowski.
it was Henry. But yeah, no. So After Midnight, whenever that becomes available, definitely see it.
I am waiting with bated
hysterical.
breath. I cannot.
It's one of the movies that I'm like, every once in a while we do a movie that's brand new and we just put a bunch of spoilers up front and say like, hey, we really think you should see this movie.
Spoiler alerts up front.
Yeah. Like we'll be like, hey, there's going to be spoilers all over this. Don't listen to this episode until you see the movie. I feel like After Midnight is the big one for me where I'm like, we need to do an episode when it's readily available. But all right, that's the one I'll cover from Fantastic Fest.
Brian, you want to hit us with one?
Yeah. What are we just doing? The ones that we loved.
Or
Well,
just whatever
you want. I'm saving my top 3 for the very end.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do, and we're just doing one at a time. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I did 2.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm gonna do one of the ones that I was highly, highly let down with, which was Brightburn.
Dude, same. Brightburn was the most disappointed I've been in a James Gunn production in I don't know how long.
Yeah, it just didn't. There was no story arc. There's
no joy.
I have no desire to see it because I already know exactly what that movie is going to do.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think my problem is, and I've noticed this with the difference between James Gunn directed versus James Gunn produced, is like every James Gunn directed movie I have found very fun and lighthearted and goofy. And every produced movie of his is just so nihilistic and bleak. And like Brightburn is without a doubt the most just bleak, negative, nihilistic movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I saw it the weekend of Pop Rock and Horror. And
that's right.
there's a small little theater in Gettysburg that was like a 5-minute drive. And I had gotten to Pop Rock and Horror Thursday to set up the table. And then I had nothing to do, so I drove to the movie theater, and it was a completely empty theater. And Brightburn is like maybe an 80-minute movie.
Oh, really?
And I'm like sitting in the theater, and I'm just like, I am not enjoying this. And it got to the point where I was so not into it, and the fact that there was no one else in the movie theater, that I just turned back on my phone and read the Wikipedia summary of the movie so I could figure out how much more time was left for me to deal with. And I was like, all right, it looks like I got like 5 more minutes left. I'll just sit and like I have never done that before. I was so just ready for it to be over.
Yeah. Big yawn fest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and on the
definitely bad.
heels of that, I want to talk about a couple. I'm gonna just knock a couple out that were overhyped. Bliss, which also stars one of the guys from The Battery, and he probably is also in After Midnight. Yeah, he's in After Midnight as well.
Yeah, Jeremy Gardner or whatever.
Maybe.
I think that's his name.
Yeah, Jeremy. Yeah, whatever his last name is, Jeremy G. I was watching it, and first of all, it made me feel physically ill because I don't like drug movies. But I thought that the fucking payoff would be worth it, and it wasn't. I mean, the last shot of it, neither of you guys, Matt, you saw it?
No, I didn't really have an interest.
So I just, fuck, man, like, I just thought that it was so overhyped, and I didn't think that it was visually very attractive. I thought the pacing was really annoying. The editing was super annoying. It's one of those movies where the main character is super unlikable, and there's no character arc. She becomes a fucking vampire. Like, everybody knows what Bliss is about already, but just it sucked. I really was super disappointed that I wasted $3 renting that, and 70 minutes of a 90-minute movie. But I also really didn't like Braid. And I skipped through that movie a lot.
Dude, me neither. And that was number one on so many lists. That's why I watched it. It was like the best horror movies of 2019. And I was like, me and Jade watched it and we're like, this is just bad.
When it got to the twists, there were like 3 big twists in my opinion. And when they got to them, first of all, I could see them coming a mile away. And second of all, I was just annoyed by them because I thought that they were presented in and the pacing was god awful. But the thing that really frustrated me the most about Braid is the fact that the woman who was in Cam, and she's in Handmaid's Tale, and I can't remember her name.
Madeline Brewer.
Madeline Brewer.
Yeah, Madeline Brewer. She is so good. She's an amazing actress. I absolutely love her. But I feel like the direction that she took for Braid was not up to snuff, because she was like, she annoyed me, which is so odd because I know that she's better than that. But anyway, Braid was super, super frustrating. And then the last one that I want to talk about that I did not enjoy, that was hyped up by another podcast that we'll rename nameless, was Wounds. It was on Hulu.
Didn't see it.
Yeah, didn't see it.
Don't. It was on a couple lists and I was like, that sounds like it's stupid. It's like a possessed phone, basically. And this other podcast was talking highly about it, and I was like, well, I've got the morning before we record this episode. I can waste 80 minutes on that. And the pacing was ridiculous. It was so slow. Nothing fucking happens. Their CGI is god awful, and the worst, the most egregious part about it is that the concept is fucking great. It's talking about it's called the translation of wounds, which is like a Gnostic thing. Like, you could use wounds as a portal to the other world and speak to other beings. Sweet fucking idea. I think it's the worst horror movie I saw this year, just because it took such a great concept and shat on it. I was just like, and the acting was bad, and Zazie Beetz was in it, looking hot, acting like shit. So it's basically like the Splice of 2019, or Slice of 2019, because it wasn't Zazie Beetz in Slice last
think
year.
So, yeah.
Brian loved it.
Let me cover to piggyback off of this. I won't talk about the worst ones I've seen, because some of the ones that were bad that I saw, I kind of expected them to be bad.
Well, I guess what I mean is movies that were hyped that were bad. That's what I was.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to go with a little bit here. I felt nothing about Depraved. It was fine.
I didn't even bother.
Yeah, it wasn't groundbreaking. It was fine. I liked it, but it didn't really resonate with me the way that it did with a lot of other people. And there couldn't have been a movie more made for me than Crawl, and I just could not care less when I was watching it. I was so bored by it.
Really?
Just a bunch of CGI alligators really didn't do it for me. I just felt like it just kept going and I wanted it to be over. But those were the two that really, like, I went in ready to have a semi good time and was just kind of like mediocrity is kind of the worst for me. Like,
well, that's if a horror movie doesn't make you feel anything, then why did it even get made?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'll knock those two out. All right, Brian, what you changed the path for us. What's the next direction you want to take this conversation?
So I'm going to leave Us out of it because I want to like Us.
Same.
But yeah. I didn't like it as much. But so since we did Overhyped, I am going to call this segment Everyone Hate It, but I thoroughly enjoyed, and that is Velvet Buzzsaw. Not going to get on.
I didn't watch it because it got such bad reviews, but like the concept sounds like it's so funny. Like the part where there's a dead body in the art studio or the art gallery, and people think it's just an art installation for days. Yeah. I love that.
Like, it was just so entertaining, and Jade hated it, and I was like, this is awesome, and like, I can watch, like, there's a lot of people that I can watch in a bad, whether a movie's good or bad, and I don't think Velvet Buzzsaw is good, but it's like, even if the movie's bad, how do you not enjoy just watching Jake Gyllenhaal? Like, I can always just watch Jake Gyllenhaal. So yeah, that's my topic right now, is underrated of 2019.
Okay. I've got two of those. Actually, I might have three of those. Scott, what do you got going over there?
Underrated?
Yeah.
I would say there are two.
Okay.
I would say Child's Play is underrated because so many people kind of passed over it because it wasn't because it was a reboot. But I thought it was very good. I mean, Mark Hamill.
I think it's one of the better reboots. I would say it's probably my top 5 horror remakes of all time, honestly.
I mean, I don't know if I would go that far. I would want to rewatch it, but I just loved the fact that okay, it's a killer robot, but it's also a really you feel it's like an empathetic character.
Yeah,
it's
you feel
weird.
For him,
robot.
What's the other one?
Shit, where would it go? Sweetheart.
Okay.
Didn't say it.
So Sweetheart is a movie that J-Cho didn't like. And I really enjoyed it for what it was. It's basically Castaway with a killer water monster. And it doesn't sound like something I would like on paper at all. But I thought that the pacing was a lot better than it should have been. Like, I thought that it was going to drag ass, and it didn't. Pacing is, like, 2019 for me is the year that I think that I've really started to have more of a critical eye on pacing, because I've always watched movies and taken this, like, emotional piece away. Like, how did that make me feel? And now I'm trying to, like, break it down technically and say, okay, why did I like this movie when I didn't need to, or why didn't I like this movie when it has cool concepts? And I think pacing is so important for me because I don't have time to watch a slow burn very often. Although my favorite movie of the year was a slow burn, so we'll get there.
But yeah, and I think that there's something to be said with, for me, it's just like we keep getting more and more of these like 2.5, 3 hour long movies, and that's fine. But if you're going to make a movie that's 2.5, 3 hours long, you need to make every second of that film count to me.
Do you want to talk about It Chapter 2?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a pacing issue with It Chapter 2, isn't there?
A little, three fucking hours. Watching that movie at home was a slog. It took me 2 days.
Yeah, you should see the fights I'm getting in with Jade because of it too.
What, that she liked it?
We haven't seen it yet, but I already know.
Don't bother.
I'll see it, and I'll even pay $3 to see it. The issue right now is whether it's good or bad. Is it's only available for buy, and her argument is we would pay that much to go see it together in the theater, and it's like, yeah, but we didn't, and now I know what it's hitting for. So I'm not going to pay $20.
Yes.
Yeah, don't bother.
I didn't hate it as much as a lot of, like, some people hated it. I think that there's things that I liked about it. I think the performances are good. There's comedic beats that hit. There's scary parts that hit. It's it could have lost an hour and been effective in all of the same ways that it was effective.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem.
Do you love how much for me, Eddie was the standout character in that.
Killed it.
The adult Eddie was so good.
Adult Eddie was great. And we're clearly being spoiler free, but I think that the Under the Bleachers scene is one of the most tense moments I've had watching a horror movie. Obviously, that was seeing it opening night in theaters, which is a different experience than, I don't know, watching it on the couch in the middle of the afternoon. But
yeah,
I mean, that scene was to me, I was just like, I know that this isn't going to end well, and it makes me really upset because they did a great job of making a very sympathetic character very quickly.
Yeah. And I did tell Matt this, and so for the listeners who did see it, Chapter 2, there's one. So for that movie being so bloated, there weren't very many visually stunning scenes. Like if you have 3 hours of material, I would hope that you would have a couple shots that are just gorgeous. And there was really only one for me, and it was when Jessica Chastain, Bev and Ben are reaching out to each other from their own personal nightmares scenarios, and then they lock hands, and I loved that. It was just it was really pretty, and I feel like if you have a 3-hour movie, have more of that.
Yeah, there's cool concepts that are examined. Sure. I liked the idea that they kind of mementoed us in the sense of they're remembering things that they didn't show us in the first movie, so we're discovering the pieces along with them. Like stuff like that was really, really cool, but you could have done it all in 2 hours and not lost the audience as quickly. Yeah. So for me, the ones that I feel like I've been hearing people really not trash, but just kind of clearly weren't like as floored by as I was. And we talked about it when we did the In Theaters Now for it, but Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, I still think rewatching it was a very good, fun movie, and I don't understand how many people are like just all up in arms about it not being what they wanted it to be. Yeah,
that's top 5 for me. I'm gonna say it right here. It's definitely top 5. I don't even need to say why. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah. And then the other one for me that I think is great, but it's cheesy, but I thought Happy Death Day to You was a blast.
Yeah, I loved it. That
was another one that people were just very like, oh no, they lost the story. And I'm like, I think that they improved upon the story. I think that it makes so much
sense. That's, you have to lean into a ridiculous concept.
Yeah.
And they dove head first into it, which I love.
And I don't get it. That's the biggest thing I don't get. I could get if Happy Death Day was like a very serious horror movie, and then Happy Death Day to You was what it was, and people were like annoyed at the slapstick of the horror. But the first one was the same tone as the second one.
It's the exact same tone. And I will say in that same vein of like, what did you go in expecting? Like Ma is so much fun if you're going into it knowing what it is.
I did not like Ma.
Oh, I loved Ma. I think it's all because her performance is just so absurd. And it's like getting someone of that caliber to play such a weird character. I was just charmed the whole time watching it.
Yeah, there was one scene that I thought was done really well in Ma that would be a spoiler, and it'd be a big spoiler because it was the only scene that I thought was good. I thought the acting was good. I don't know. Even when I try to go into things with such low expectations, I think as soon as it comes out of my bank account, my expectations change. And so far, everything I've paid for this year has been a letdown. Prime World, in the Prime World, not in movie theaters.
With that in mind, then Brian, I sent you a free digital code for Escape Room. How did you feel about that?
It was dumb,
but it was like him, but not me.
Yeah.
Well, you only can use it once.
Oh, okay.
He was like, Jade and I want to watch Escape Room, and I was like, well, I just bought it. Here's the digital code.
Yeah. But that's so different. Like, I still haven't seen Truth or Dare, but I know what I'm expecting. You. Yeah. Thank you.
Listen, I can promise you that Escape Room is 1,000 times better than Truth or Dare.
Yeah, but, it was entertaining. I was on my phone most of the time. Yeah,
Escape Room's just it's puzzles. It's like, hey, I like puzzles. Sure. It's like a comedy version of fucking Cube. But yeah, Escape Room was fine. I mean, it's like not exactly high on my list. It's had of the 110 movies I saw this year, I ranked it at 79, so it's not exactly breaking records here.
110 movies. Good
Dude,
God, man.
You are forgetting the fact that, and those are just the 2019 movies that you watched this year.
Yeah, not including what we watched for the show or movies that I watched for enjoyment or the marathon of Christmas films that I've been doing this month.
Yeah, Jesus,
but
Matt.
Got to keep in mind that Matt did have, or probably still has, that movie pass.
I have two. I have the Regal and the AMC one, so I gotta get $35 worth of movies each month, which is still like 3 movies. But
yeah,
but yeah. So let's see, Brian. Yeah,
I have 2 things. I have 2 topics. I just want to make sure we can do this on the right track and see how you guys feel about it. But I have a movie that you haven't heard of. That's the topic. And then a movie that I watched for someone else, with someone else that I had no intention of liking, but it actually turned out to be very good. And then my top 5.
All right, let's start.
I hope that you can remember what those were, because like I'm gonna forget.
Okay, so the first one is movies you haven't heard of, right? Movie you haven't heard of. I brought it up on the show.
A movie
that was not marketed, that I don't think anyone heard of, right?
Oh. Okay.
And I think that I'm going to say Skin, which I talked about on the show. That's the one that takes place in Ohio, about the kid that was raised in the white supremacist movement. And then
is that a horror movie though?
No, it's just a movie.
Well, buddy, it's horror movie night.
All right.
I just said a bunch of things that weren't horror, didn't I?
Not really.
No? What did you? What?
Oh, well, then I don't have a top 5.
So for that same topic,
you don't have to have a top 5.
Yeah, so for that same topic that you're talking about, Brian, I will say that for me, one that I feel like does not get talked about nearly enough, and we rode pretty hard for this, is Mercy Black.
It's on my list.
Yeah, that was good.
It's still a really fun movie.
I mean, it's not something that I would revisit very often, but I really loved the concept. And like Matt said when we discussed it, it's the Slender Man movie we should have had.
Yeah, 100%. Because the Slender Man that we got was bad. So
do we want to?
Do we want? I was going to say, do we want to knock out some of the really bad ones?
Well,
like, because I can just rattle off the bottom 4 of my year are all horror movies.
Okay, well, that's not what I want to do. I want to say one of my top 3 right now that really no one heard about.
Okay.
It's called The Headhunter.
Nice.
And it's showing up on some lists now, and I think it just got... I rented it on Prime, and then I think it either got picked up on Shudder or it's on Prime for free. If you know, like it's like I rented it on Amazon, and I think it's on Prime for free now. And it is amazing, and it's a 2-person. There are 2 actors in it. That's it. There are 5 production people on it. That's it. So the guy that wrote, directed, and edited, did the special effects. It's all one guy. They had like a gaffer, a sound guy, and 2 helpers or some shit. They did it for what? $50,000, $30,000, $50,000 over the course of 3 weeks, I want to say, in Portugal. And the conceit of the film is, or the concept of the film is, this guy, this unnamed medieval
like Viking or something,
Viking type character, is a monster hunter, and he gets called to by this unseen, probably a king in a castle, to go and hunt a new monster regularly. And every time he does, he brings the head back and puts it on a spike on his wall, and he gets paid, but he doesn't care. Like I love this world building where he opens up, he just throws the money, the gold coins in that he gets at the beginning from killing this new monster. And it's just like, he has a vast fortune, but he's just killing monsters because his daughter was murdered by a monster and it got away. And so it's basically like he has nothing to live for. But the monster that did kill his daughter comes back, and that's like that's the battle, the big battle. Phenomenal film. It's kind of a slow burn, but it's also something like 70 minutes. It's really short. And it does exactly what it needs to do. and it is definitely top 3 for me this year.
So I had not heard about this until they talked about it on another podcast's list, and the thing that really grabbed my attention the most is that the director, his previous films were the Thanksgiving movies.
Yep.
And this was like him trying to like change the script a little bit and be seen as more of like a dude who knows how to make a movie on a budget and less of like a guy who just makes a shitty puppet movie. So I'm really interested in seeing that, because I remember one of my favorite things about him as a person was that when Thanksgiving first came out, if you went to the website, the only things on the website was a buy this DVD option, the trailer, and a section called how to get your movie into stores. And it was him breaking down step by step what he did to get Thanksgiving available in like Best Buys and stuff like that. And like, this is exactly how you do it. This is how much it costs. These are the links to click, because he just wanted to share the knowledge that he had about how to get a low budget movie out there. So
That's
it's like,
awesome.
Yeah, like I am all about, anybody who's met me at a convention knows that I am all about sharing the wealth, not hoarding knowledge. So like that was a huge thing for me, was seeing someone out there who managed to get their like, like Thanksgiving looks like it was made for like $50 to get his $50 movie in Best Buys and Blockbusters and shit, where it actually could get his name out there, and not just being like, ooh, this is my little secret that I'm keeping to myself, and being like, hey, there's plenty of room in the sandbox for all of us. Like, here's how to do it. Do you have another one, Scott, or is it my turn?
No, you were going to talk about stuff that you really disliked, I guess.
Yeah, so these, I'm just going to run them down real quick. Yeah. The ones that like really just didn't do it for me this year, and none of these will be shocks at all. I just tried to go see every horror film that came out in theaters this year. Countdown was not great, minus one character who deserves their own movie. 47 Meters Down Uncaged was worse than the original, which is impressive. The Prodigy was really, really bad. That was the first horror film of the year. Greta was the worst theatrical released horror film of the year for me. And unfortunately, I actually, may have done an interview for this last one, but my least favorite movie of the year was Recovery. Was just a really not great movie. But that is my bottom ones, so I just wanted to get those out of the way, and got a couple more just kind of straggling in here.
Yeah, I want to mention a couple that I've recently watched, or I mean, they're just fun, bloody little movies. Okay. The Banana Splits movie, which I really was hyped for. It was fun, but I feel like it lost steam.
Okay.
So I am glad that I spent the, $6 or whatever to rent it, but I'm glad I didn't spend the $20 to buy it. But we do need more horror movies that are like a crazy concept like that.
Give me the Sigmund the Sea Monster movie.
I don't mean completely the same concept. I just mean let's take a wild concept and run with it, and make a gory ass horror movie. And the other one that I liked but didn't love, I thought it was a little too young for me, but it's also not really like a young movie. It's not like a teenager movie, but it felt like the characters were written by a teenager. Girl on the Third Floor, with CM Punk in it.
Okay.
And it's a haunted house story, and it's basically like a Stir of Echoes kind of concept, which Stir of Echoes did it much better. I love Stir of Echoes, but yeah, they were nice, gory little flicks that were worth seeing once, but not something I'd really go back to.
All right, sounds good.
I have more. I don't know, Brian. Do you have stuff that you?
Well, my list is fucked. So I only have 2 horror movies to even bring up
that you liked this year.
That are so out of my top 5 movies of this year, only 2 are horror.
But like we never said, let's make a top 5 list.
It's fine.
I feel like last year I could be wrong though, because a year is a long time and my life crumbled this year. But I thought last year was just like, hey, we're just gonna do our top 10 movies. Doesn't have to be horror.
Well, let's mention, because there are 2 movies that came out that were kind of actually there were 3 movies that came out that were big movies that we did not do in theaters nows on for different reasons. Was I the only one that saw Pet Sematary?
No, I saw it too.
I didn't see it. I have
What
no
did you
desire.
think of it, Brian?
I mean, I thought that it was a fine movie. I think that a lot of people saying that it's a disgrace to the original or not as good as the original haven't seen the original since they were 9.
Yeah, because the original's not that great either.
Yeah. It's as good as the original to me, which is that it's not very good.
Yeah, like it wasn't terrible, but I just could have done. And like people,
the big thing that I liked was making the child a little bit older so they could actually talk about the feeling of being dead, because that was the most compelling and chilling moments of that movie. But like beyond that, I mean, I'll say it. The best Pet Sematary movie is Pet Sematary 2 with Edward Furlong. It's so outrageous and goofy that it's the most enjoyable to watch.
I like the bait and switch that they did a few times from the original. I like those, but yeah, I mean, here's the thing: there's certain things that they didn't need to do from the original. I could have done without the whole mother backstory. I don't think it played as an important role as people are making it out to be. So yeah, that was all right. What was your next one?
I know you and I were split on this and Scott didn't see it, but 3 from Hell.
3 from Hell, man. Listen, I got yelled at by my best friend this week, so I'm not going to talk on 3 from Hell. I was defending The Irishman, which is not a horror movie, and I was saying how great it was. And he says, Brian, when you decide that you love any musician or movie director, they can do no wrong in your eyes. And I said, okay, fair enough. Then I'll stay out of it. Although I didn't love what's it called? Salem.
Lords of Salem?
Lords of Salem.
I liked Lords of Salem.
Didn't love it.
Yeah, that was, I will say that 3 from Hell, when I first started watching it, I thought that this was incredible. And then they changed the tone of the movie, and I got really bummed. Because the first, 10 minutes of the movie is shot like an old true crime documentary about what happened after the events of Devil's Rejects. And in my brain, I would have loved for the movie to have just stayed that. Like, if it was just a full true crime documentary style movie covering what happened, I would have been so much more invested, because as soon as it broke off into regular narrative, I lost all interest.
But how did they even get over the fact that they got turned into fucking Swiss cheese?
They made a joke about it. They didn't.
Yeah, they made some jokes about it and called it a day. And then I'm sure this is on almost all of our top lists, but Midsommar.
Midsommar was phenomenal. Midsommar was phenomenal.
I thought it was a great movie. It's not even in my top 5 because I don't think it's a horror movie.
It's my number.
It was in my top 25.
It's my number 2 of the year.
Of course it is, because you loved Hereditary. But I mean, Hereditary.
And once you decide that you like a director,
Ari Aster can take a shit, and you'd be like, "This is incredible."
Well, Rob Zombie's different, because he's the toughest thing for anyone that is really, and this is a broad thing for me to say, but anyone that is genuinely middle of the road when it comes to him, it's tough to get a good take on a Rob Zombie movie, because for the most part, there's people that are like me, that are like, no matter what, fuck yeah, Rob Zombie. And then there's people on the other end of the spectrum that are like, no matter what, like, fuck Rob Zombie.
But you know who's more obnoxious?
Who?
The fuck yeah, Rob Zombie.
Yeah, because they are okay. So let's just make this a reference, because Rob Zombie's vegan, obviously. I'm vegan as well, and
the Rob Zombie fans are the Morrisseys.
The what?
The Rob Zombie fans are like the Morrisseys of the vegan culture.
No. I wasn't going to talk about vegans versus vegans. I was going to say people that are omnivores that are like, you know how to tell if someone's vegan? You don't. They'll tell you. The loud assholes who make fun of vegans are the Rob Zombie fans. They have to be like, who's fucking awesome, Rob Zombie? You know who fucking sucks? People that don't like Rob Zombie. And then I'm over here just living my life like, he's made a lot of mediocre movies and music. Yeah. I don't really care.
It's like how I feel about people who hate juggalos.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm like, we're not bothering you.
we.
First of all, juggalos are bothering everyone. I don't know what you're talking about.
Have you know what the worst part about juggalos are is the fact that Faygo had to go to a different kind of sugar in their fucking soft drinks because they had to make it so that it wasn't so sticky when they would have ICP shows.
Yeah. See,
side note, Scott, I don't know if you saw this, but I made a reference to a juggalo in our family text message group chat.
Why would I see that? I am not in your family text message group.
I posted it online, but my mom goes, "What's a juggalo?" To which my brother just responds with the lyrics to "What is a juggalo?" by Insane.
A weird ass family, man.
We really do. We really
2 liters stuck up his butt crack. All right, so I do want to do one quick shout out. Not technically a horror movie, but horror adjacent. Shout out to the unofficial 4th member of this podcast and their documentary "Survival of the Film Freaks."
Hell yeah!
This year,
Kyle. I haven't had Kyle in my life in way too long.
Dude, I am so excited that I'll get to see Kyle a bunch in 2020.
I will not. Sorry, Kyle.
It's that's your own fault.
You had to get married.
No, it's not even that. We said that we would pay for him to come to some conventions. He's like, nah, I don't want to go. I don't like people.
That is a Brian.
What? I'm sorry.
There's 2 Brians on this call. All right, so let's talk about our top stuff and wrap this up a bit.
Wait, I have just a few that I want to give honorable mention to.
Okay.
The Perfection.
Okay.
Which we talked about on the show. Not an episode, but we talked about it back in like April when it came out. Good. I wouldn't revisit. The Field Guide to Evil, which I just recently saw and talked about just maybe like a month and a half ago. And then Necrotronic, which I have also talked about on the show, which is kind of more like it's not really sci-fi horror. It's a straight horror movie, but it's really fun. I wouldn't put it in my top 10 even if I were making a top 10, but it was a really good time to watch. And if you guys haven't seen it, I believe that it's for free on Amazon Prime now.
All right, cool.
Now we can get to the nitty gritty.
So I'll start real quick because I don't think either of you have seen either of the 2 that were my 2 favorite horror films. Well, no, Scott, you did see one of them. One barely counts as a horror movie. It's technically a TV show. I know. Fuck it. I don't care. It has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Into the Dark Culture Shock was one of the best horror films I've seen in a really long time. I got to interview Gigi when I was at Fantastic Fest, and it really is just, it's such a unique, Brian, you need to see it. It's such a John Waters horror type movie, the way it's presented, but it's just a great movie. And I know that like Into the Dark is definitely hit or miss, but
Into the Dark is not hit or miss. I was dedicated to watching every Into the Dark, and after like 5 movies, I'm like, I'm done doing this to myself.
Yeah, make an exception and watch Culture Shock.
Yeah, Culture Shock is really, really good.
Like Culture Shock, it's almost upsetting that it wasn't just released in theaters as a movie, because I think it's something that more people need to see. And then the other big one, which is also a super polarizing movie, debatable if it's even a horror movie, but The fucking Lighthouse.
Yep.
I didn't get a chance to see it.
Number 4 on my top 5 of the year.
It's so good. It's so funny. It's so weird. It's so interesting. It's in my top 10 of the year. It was number 9 for the entire year for me, but it's the only horror movie that cracked the top 10. All right, so Scott and Brian, what are on your top lists?
I mean, you kind of named everything that is horror on my list.
Sorry,
did we talk about us yet?
Well, you said we were going to just like lightly touch.
Well, I mean,
on, like,
I don't mean talk about it. I just meant like, is that high up for you guys?
No, not at all.
No, it was like 48 on my entire year, I think.
Yeah,
it was top 50.
Dude. Jesus.
Yeah.
How do you have a top 50?
This is his hobby, dude. Don't judge.
Okay.
It's like I said, Us is one of those movies that I like it. I don't love it, but like I will revisit it. But I also won't revisit it that much. Like it's just kind of, it's there. It's not one that like years from now I'm gonna be like, oh man, Us, that was the one. You know what I mean? Like this year had a lot of good horror movies, but even with as much as I loved Lighthouse, like there wasn't a horror movie to me that really, like 2 years ago when It Chapter 1 came out, like that was like that is the horror movie of 2017. There just wasn't anything that left such a giant imprint on me where I was like, nope, this is without it. Like there's so many movies that over time I could see them shifting in and out of like what is the big one for me. But
yeah,
it was a very good year, but like not like a blown away year.
That's so crazy. You guys are crazy. Like all 3 of us watched The Hole in the Ground, right?
Yeah, no, that was really good.
No,
that's not my top 5, but that was
my
really
number
good.
1. It's straight up my number 1. It has everything I needed from a horror movie. And it was awesome pacing. The actual, like, so I really like folklore, and having it be a changeling story. I mean, it's not a spoiler to say it's a changeling story, because it's literally a changeling story. But the presentation of it, the acting, the visuals, the end, that was the best movie of 2019 for me. Although I didn't see The Lighthouse, but that's my favorite. Well, my favorite horror movie of 2019. I didn't even look at what I've seen that's non-horror.
Yeah, Hole in the Ground is really good. I'm just gonna go through my top 5. Fuck it, breaking the rules. Number 5, Irishman. Number 4, Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile. Number 3, The Lighthouse. Number 2, Midsommar. Number 1, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
All right.
All for the end. The end is worth everything leading up to it.
All right, fair enough. I think my top 5, and obviously there's a bunch that are. We're recording this in early December. There's a bunch coming out at the end of December that could shift this around. But right now it's number 5, Knives Out for me.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4. What the fuck was my number 4? I blanked out on number 4, so it must not have been that good. Oh, sorry. Number 4, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Number 3 was The Peanut Butter Falcon. Number 2 was Booksmart, and number 1 for me was Jojo Rabbit.
Okay, still haven't seen Jojo.
I refuse.
But yeah, there was a lot. I just think that there was a lot of really good comedies and like dramedies that came out this year. I think they just kind of dominated for me this year. And Knives Out. Just throwing this out there, if you're a fan of Clue, you should see Knives Out. It's just a modern day Clue. It's a blast.
Yeah. Brian mentioned the Shockingly Vile, the Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
Man, so fucking good. I even, Megan hates it, but every maybe 2 months, I'll just turn to her and be like, "Never you."
Yeah.
And she hates it. She hates it.
Dude,
it gives her the shivers every. It. No. We liked the movie. She hates it when I say that because it's very disturbing.
Yeah. Okay. I get what you're saying.
She doesn't like him saying it, Brian, because it's fucking weird.
It's fucking disturbing. What would be a great double feature? Shockingly Evil. What is it?
The Ted Bundy.
Yeah, Ted Bundy, Pretty Boy Bundy, and then you watch Black Christmas.
Oh my god!
So that was 2019. We're gonna be back in like 2 days with an episode that Brian is just really fucking so upset. But hopefully it's not as bad as I think it's gonna be. But I have a feeling it's gonna be as bad as I think it's gonna be. So thanks guys again for just hanging out with us all this year, just making it a great year for the podcast. And as I said before, rate and review, subscribe. We'll read your reviews on the air if you give us a 5-star review. And thank you so much for everyone who donates at our Patreon, patreon.com/HMN podcast. And for just checking out all the crazy shit we do on social media, it's HMN podcast on all of our social media platforms. And the website is hmnpodcast.com.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.